Hello. In the headlines today, police are appealing for witnesses to a serious assault in a village near Cleethorpes, and Immingham unveils a special tribute to those who fought in the First World War. But first, volunteers are more necessary than ever in the face of scathing cuts to council budgets from central government. That's the message from North East Lincolnshire Council's portfolio holder for tourism, leisure and culture as we celebrate National Volunteers Week. Councillor Mick Burnett made the comments at Grimsby Central Library at a special event to celebrate the work of volunteers within the local library service. He praised their work but said the situation with central government cuts eating into the library service was a sad indictment on the way things are going.
I was talking to a lady just now, she's been doing it now nearly for 4 or 5 years. Excellent, and that's a commitment. She does a volunteer, she left work and come to volunteer. And not only in the library service, we have a lot of volunteers throughout the council, and it's because of government cuts. And it's a shame that we have to go that way, but it is about using what facilities we have to provide a service. In this case, it's a library service.
They can't get out like a lot of us can. They can't get out to see people, but us going in and taking the books, and it's something for them to do as well.
It makes me feel worthwhile. It's very satisfying. I meet some lovely people, and if you can just give a little helping hand, and I've got the time. I don't go to work now, and it's just I'd much rather be doing that than staying at home watching television.
A man had half his ear bitten off and another suffered 2 broken ribs while fighting in the middle of the afternoon in the village of New Waltham near Cleethorpes. The 21-year-old was taken to Hull Royal Infirmary for surgery on his ear and also suffered injuries to his eye. The 30-year-old man was taken to Grimsby's Diana Princess of Wales Hospital for treatment for his 2 broken ribs. Police are now looking for witnesses to the altercation, which happened on Station Road at around 1:45 p.m. on Saturday the 24th of May. The Mayor of North East Lincolnshire is now enjoying her final week as Mayor and as a councillor. The long-serving Labour councillor Peggy Elliott stepped down from her seat in the Freshney ward before local elections last month to take a break from politics. The seat was won by UKIP's Nicholas Pettigrew. Councillor Elliott held a farewell reception at Grimsby Town Hall and local politicians from numerous parties visited to wish her well. We talked to her about the highlights of the political career and what she'll be doing now.
Within the council, I championed the Leeds Heart unit to retain it, to keep it open, and actually that comes out this month, whether we manage to keep Leeds or not. And that's been one big issue that I've been leading on. My future plans is, my husband and I were taking a gap year and a well-deserved rest from politics, and we're hoping to do quite a lot of travelling, but we shall still stay very much in the political scene.
And finally, Immingham has unveiled a literally groundbreaking tribute to those who fought in the First World War. Councillors originally discussed a plaque to commemorate the centenary of the outbreak of World War I, but gradually decided that something special was needed. It's taken months to create the First World War trench, complete with items that soldiers would have been issued with in 1914, and even poppies growing on the top. It was officially opened with a special ceremony, and the Mayor of Immingham says that its physical presence is a reminder of what people sacrificed and will serve as a learning aid to school children.
I think even at my age, I've never been through a world war, and obviously looking at that trench, and I came down the other day when it was raining, and I couldn't imagine how bad it must have been to spend days in those conditions. Not only that, but having people shooting at you as well. So I think it's good for all of us, even at my age, to know how bad it was and how our forefathers, what they sacrificed for us.
And you can see that trench for yourself next to the cenotaph on Immingham's Pelham Road. That's all for today's headlines. And now it's time for our weekly paper review. We've got Steve Ryder here, the MD of CPO Media, which is a group that uses media to try and you go for social change. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, we're set up under the banner of social regeneration, so we try to use media as a way to encourage people back into training or education. It's a bit of a magnet to get people who wouldn't otherwise engage back into training and learning.
That's great. So what have we seen in this week's papers? There's been quite a lot of very divisive stories, haven't we?
Yeah, I want to start off with a sort of a tale of two supermarkets, really.
And you are a Louth resident. We should probably let you know first of all.
I'd like to look at contrasting stories from the Louth Leader and from the today's Scunthorpe Telegraph. I think the old joke in Louth is that if two or more people are gathered together, they'll eventually start talking about supermarkets, and so it's proving in Louth at the moment. Obviously, the cattle market has become quite a divisive subject in Louth. But the recommendation of East Lindsey District Council's Executive Board...
I mean, just to cut in, we should probably explain to the reader that there's been a lot... Well, the council has been thinking about selling it for quite a long time.
Absolutely. There's been a proposal to sell the cattle market, and the 15 companies who came in to bid for the land are all supermarket food groups.
And now it's coming to a head because it's decision time.
Tomorrow the decision will be taken by the District Council's Executive Board whether or not to recommend to the full council board, 23rd of July, whether to sell to a preferred bidder. Obviously, things have changed very slowly in Louth. There is a small Morrison supermarket, and then Aldi played a massive hand, I suppose, and got something right. If you want to build a supermarket in Louth, found something that people do want to knock down and use that land. So obviously the demolishing of the malt kiln and replacing it with Aldi met with approval, even of those in the group Keep Louth Special.
And is this as popular, this decision?
No, it seems to be incredibly unpopular from residents groups, and certainly the group Keep Louth Special, who've raised at least 4,200 names. The Louth Leader informs us on a petition which they'll hand in on the 23rd of July when the decision is taken.
And how do you think that would affect the town centre? Well,
people think it will affect the town centre by driving smaller businesses away. And as a Louth resident, I would have to say that having gone to other market towns in Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire in recent years, there's a massive difference between how Louth seems to continue to thrive. When a shop becomes empty, it's quickly filled again. Very few vacant properties. A lot of small businesses, especially the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, which Louth is traditionally famous for. Can Louth survive another supermarket? I think most people would say not. And there certainly seems to be a reluctance for the bigger players, the Tesco's, the Sainsbury's, the Asda's of this world, as opposed, I suppose, to Aldi, who, although a growing supermarket, are seen as a slightly different player in the market.
I suppose one of the pros to this, though, and it can't be forgotten, that if there was another large-scale supermarket to come into the area, it would mean employment.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why the Aldi proposal was seen favourably was that the number of jobs created, not only initially in the destruction of the malt kiln, the building of the supermarket itself, but the residual jobs that would be left once the supermarket opened.
But the negatives, I suppose, would be that this is a historical spot.
Absolutely.
It's been used to sell cattle, as
Absolutely.
the name would suggest.
And I think that's right. And I think its location is somewhere where people feel that there would be a better use, perhaps a more recreational use to the space. And I've seen the numerous drawings that have been distributed around the town and shown in shop windows as to what the space could be used for. But it'll come down to economics, James, as it always does, I'm sure.
Heritage or economics.
Absolutely.
But obviously the contrasting story that we've got here is one that was in the Scunthorpe Telegraph.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's about, yet again, a man with a supermarket proposal.
Absolutely. And I think the difference here is that if you've been following stories in the Scunthorpe Telegraph over the last 6 months to a year, one of the big concerns in Scunthorpe is the number of vacant properties on the high street.
In the town centre, everyone's going. Even McDonald's have gone.
Absolutely, Marks and Spencer's have gone, and those are stories that we've covered on this programme before. But it would seem that there is some good news, and in direct contrast to the Louth story, it's in the form of a supermarket. So Polish-born businessman Krzysztof Liziski has been granted approval by North Lincolnshire Council to sell alcohol 7 days a week at the supermarket he plans to open. The supermarket's going to be called Pasikonik and will occupy the ground floor of the former Ashton Cooperative Retail Emporium, which has been empty, according to the Scunthorpe Telegraph, for more than 3 years. And I suppose the direct contrast here is that as jobs and retail has moved away from the town centre in Scunthorpe to retail outlets on the edge of town, this is an opportunity for something to come back into town, which is not only good for the economy, but seems to be very good for the residents in that part of the town who aren't very well served at all.
And as we're talking about regeneration, I'll use that to move on to our next story, which is in the Grimsby Telegraph.
Indeed.
And this, again, is probably quite a divisive issue. And this is a huge area of the East Marsh. There's these iconic tower blocks,
Absolutely.
whether you like them or not.
Yep.
I think most people would probably say no.
Yep.
Shoreline, who own them, are calling it a catalyst for regeneration. But of course, there are many residents who've lived there, made their homes there, who probably aren't quite as excited about the prospect of knocking them down and having to undergo serious upheaval.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you've stated, James, that we're a company that works in social regen,
and that's it on the East Marsh.
We're based very much in that part of town, and we've just regenerated a building ourselves and moved on to the top floor of it, called the Warehouse on Freeman Street. There is a plan for Freeman Street between Hainton Square and Ryby Square. The end of Freeman Street that we're at is primarily earmarked for retail and retail development. And as far as I understand it, the bottom end of Freeman Street towards Ryby Square is around housing. I think that there's two issues here. One is, I suppose, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So John Drinkle, who's complaining about the destruction, seems to think that this is a fantastic place to live. Other people would have said for a long time they're an eyesore. But
yeah.
I think the bigger issue here is that you're going to be looking for accommodation for a huge number of people.
638 houses.
Absolutely. So we demolish, and then what comes next?
What will come next?
Now, I'm all in favour of regeneration. I think that's very clear, and I think that the arguments, the economic arguments that Shoreline make are very compelling.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're moving a lot of people.
I know. It comes down really, I think, to yes, it could cause regeneration, but the people who actually live there, I think, will have to suffer perhaps in the short term.
And I think the key word that seems to be coming out of the Telegraph today is community. And the one thing I would say about working and running a business on the East Marsh is that despite many of the regeneration issues, the deprivation that we look at so many times, is that there's a real sense of community, and will the breaking up of the actual fabric of the buildings break up the communities as well? And this, of course, has happened before. There was a huge move away from the old housing when the slums were sort of destroyed in the 40s and 50s, which of course led to the creation of places like the Nunsthorpe, like the Grange, and the Tower Blocks themselves. So there's a sense of history repeating themselves, and I think we do need to learn lessons from that. And if we're going to make huge changes, we do need to make sure that we remember that this is about communities and it's about people.
And finally, we've not got long left, but this was in the Cleethorpes Chronicle. Not only the Cleethorpes Chronicle, it's actually made national headlines, and this is Austin Mitchell, long-serving Grimsby MP, has obviously announced that he's going to step down, and Labour have announced that they're going to replace him from an all-woman shortlist. So we will definitely have a female Labour candidate.
Absolutely, and I think the first thing I would say is that that I spoke to Austin recently. He actually opened our new centre 2 weeks ago today. He was adamant that he didn't want to be any kind of kingmaker, or in this case a queenmaker, it would seem. But I think he's obviously disappointed that a decision's been taken to make it an all-female list without any consultation with himself. I think there's many people, and it's touched upon obviously in the Chronicle and in other media sources, that this might be a bit of a political folly by the Labour Party. Obviously, we've seen very recently the UKIP results. Okay.
Sorry, Steve, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up.
That's fine, absolutely no
we'll
problem.
See. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Now, don't forget, we'd like to hear your news, so you can get in touch with us via phone on 01472 315 561. You can email us, news@estuary.tv, or via social media on Facebook or Twitter. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.